We did it again. I like that shirt. So pink means...
That's just the test.
I know. It just says the pink is going to be girls.
I don't know.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head,
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Forget for a moment everything you know about the Watts case. Forget about what happens over the final weekend of August 11 and 12. And forget about Nutgate and Shanann's 5 weeks in North Carolina. What I want you to compartmentalize and analyze is just the 3 days. Just the 3 days the whole family are together in Colorado. Their final 3 days at home as an intact family. On the night of August 7th, Watts either sleeps on the couch or in the basement, but we know for sure on the night of August 8th and August 9th, Watts definitely sleeps in the basement. I've already mentioned that Watts's killer psychology foments during this period, August 8 and 9, and this brings us to another myth in the Watts case. There are some who don't believe that Watts tried to poison Shanann at all, or if he did, he only did it once. Actually, he did it twice. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do like, share, leave a comment. If you're enjoying this coverage, please hit the thanks button. And let's get started. So actually, Watts did it at least twice. The first time was when he arrived in North Carolina. Shanann and family members remember Shanann vomiting and being extremely sick. And Watts also admitted poisoning her on that occasion. Well, Watts was about to try the same tactic a second time now. And this is on the morning of the 10th of August. And he had his supply of poison right where he was sleeping, in the basement, in the clear containers filled with Shanann's pain medication. Watts got up early and helped Shanann get ready for her flight, as well as take care of the girls. It was during this process that Watts likely loaded her daily shake with a megadose of oxy. He could also have put some of that powder inside one of the vials if she was using something that had powder in it. So that's another way he could have gotten it into her system. And by the way, that's the other myth. Watts dosed her shake with what he found in the basement, nobody else. It was his idea, and it was his idea to both get rid of Nico and thus prevent the gender reveal. Now, I think the reason why he admits to the first poisoning and not the second is in the first he's in North Carolina and the only person who could have done it is him. In the second scenario, having already visited his family and having just visited Kessinger on the night of the 8th, he doesn't want to implicate either of them, and he probably suspects people would want to do that, and of course they did. Now, I fully believe it was his idea, and it was his idea to both get rid of Nico and thus prevent the gender reveal. Remember, he'd already deleted his Facebook, but he still saw Nico as a very real threat to the news getting out that A, Shanann was pregnant, B, that they were still very much married, and C, a gender reveal would make it abundantly clear to anyone watching that Watts and Shanann weren't getting divorced anytime soon. Now, since the divorce process had been scrapped, Watts' priority, and remember it was scrapped basically on the 9th when he did that U-turn. So with the divorce process being scrapped, Watts' new priority was making sure he fixed the situation with Nico. And because Watts was thriving, always using patches and powders, and because he worked in the petrochemical industry, it seemed only natural to use chemicals as a way to dissolve away his problems. And that brings us to the third myth. Although MLM is a very big part of the Watts narrative, some people think it's a lot bigger than it really is. The financial aspect, the impact on that was serious and significant. In a way, I think many underestimate. But I wouldn't go so far to say, as the Lifetime movie suggested, that Thrive was turning the once pudgy Watts into a raging Hulk monster. His sleeping patterns were erratic and his thought process all jazzed up, definitely. But I think Kissinger was a far more potent chemical cocktail, addling Watts's mind, than anything else. Does that make sense? Coming back to August 10, a Friday, as early as 6:43 that morning, 6:43 a.m., which is to say within minutes, perhaps no more than an hour of taking in the oxy, Shanann communicated to Watts that she felt, quote, really weak standing. And so let's go to the phone data review for August 10. It starts off saying, Watts took the day off from work and Shanann left for Arizona. At 20 minutes past 6, missing from Watts' phone but found in Shanann's, she told Watts, good morning, honey. Sorry to make you wake up early twice today. So there's already confirmation that he had been up when Shanann left. She also said to him, I didn't want alarm going off. Shanann writes, we are checked in and everything. It's already a madhouse here today. Now, the image that you're looking at right now took hours and hours to find. I knew of the image. I was trying to find it. I went onto Shanann's social media. It's not there. Went onto Nicole Atkins's social media. Couldn't find it. It may be there, but I certainly couldn't find it. I went into Google Images. Couldn't find it there either. In the end, I did locate it in my own archives. But this is a very important image. It's the image of Shanann at the airport. She's got a shake in her hand. She's got her phone in her hand. And it's possibly around about this time that she is communicating exactly these messages. Does she look sick? Now, that's the strange thing with Shanann is in her photos, other than about one photo, which she sent privately, she always looks happy and smiling and healthy for that matter. But in reality, looks can be deceiving. And we see that in the very next line where she says at 6:43, I don't know why I feel really weak standing. She goes on to say, I'm drinking a Gatorade and a biscuit, getting ready to take off. And then the phone data review says, Watts speculated that her weakness was from a lack of sleep. Now, if you think about it, the reason Watts poisons Shanann just as she's leaving town is that it gives him plausible deniability. How could he be a suspect if he was nowhere near Shanann? She was at the airport or in the air or in Arizona. Watts used precisely the same sly reasoning to conjure an alibi for Monday morning, August 13th. How could I have something to do with Shanann vanishing? I wasn't even home. I was at work. Interestingly, Watts actually speculates in these text messages that Shanann's weakness was from lack of sleep. Do you think it was? If Shanann was secretly dosed on Friday, August 10th, could the symptoms have persisted for the rest of the weekend? Cassie and Nicole said that Shanann wasn't well for the whole weekend, and Watts claimed that the medical examiner found OxyContin in Shanann's system because he gave it to her. Watts has admitted to poisoning Shanann when he arrived in North Carolina, but never admitted to doing so a second time. But he did. Notice how Watts admits in his letter that it would be easier to be with Nikki if Shanann wasn't pregnant, not if she was dead. So I do think that if Watts had succeeded in bringing about a miscarriage, he wouldn't have persisted in annihilating his family. The miscarriage would have permanently cancelled the gender reveal, and Watts could then have taken his time to some extent sorting out the affair while juggling the unravelling of his marriage. But when his second attempt also failed, Watts panicked and decided the only way to kill Nika was by killing Shanann. And if Shanann needed to die, then he might as well get rid of the girls at the same time too. Ghastly, isn't it? This is clearly the reasoning of a simpleton and an introvert, not a psychopath and a narcissist. People think Watts killed Shanann and the kids because of what he wanted, but that's only half of the story. The other half is that he did it because he thought that's what Kissinger wanted. Not his family killed, but not in the way, because she didn't want to always be second in his life. My sense is he did what he did more to satisfy his stupid perception of what he thought Kissinger wanted now that she'd given him a key, than because it was what he wanted. And that's not narcissism, covert or otherwise. That's an introvert with very little experience with the opposite sex, who has gotten in over his head in an affair, just as Shanann got in over her head with MLM and in debt. Now, if you disagree with me and you say either that Watts didn't use the oxy or that he wasn't trying to bring about a miscarriage, let me ask you this question. If Watts meant to kill Shanann all along, then why would he need to kill Nico first? Why kill Nico and then kill Shanann? It doesn't make sense. I also want to refer to Discovery page 1769, which shows that Watts made a search for 80 milligrams oxycodone and then deleted that search. So that is part of the evidence. We know for a fact that he was thinking about it. He also later admitted to it. Again, if Chris Watts managed, if he had succeeded, if he did kill Nico, I think he would have stopped there. Since he couldn't, he felt he had to kill Shanann. Tragic and terrible as his reasoning was, the kids were simply a byproduct of his lazy but expanding criminal psychology. Does that make sense? I believe the motive crystallized on August 9th, the Thursday, when Watts' behavior suddenly makes a U-turn. But although the thought was there, he resisted it going into the weekend. Probably his date with Kissinger when she spoke about him moving out and finding an apartment the following week, when he started doing the computations, how much things were going to cost, along with his failure to take care of Nico, as well as the opportune availability of Survey 319. I think all of that got him to toy with the idea until finally he took it on. He clothed himself in the cloak of criminality because for him there was no other option left, and by Monday he was out of time. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to take it further than that, and I'm also not going to be doing any kind of analysis or deep dive really of the 11th and 12th, or even for that matter the 13th. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.